I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and perimenopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. You're tuned in to the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast, and I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely. Grateful to be here with you today. Thank you for joining me. And I have to say, it's not very often I get to talk to another OG in the menopause space, the outward-facing menopause space. And today I have a great conversation with you with none other than Dr. Carrie Jones, who you may know her from her Instagram, which is just fantastic. If you're not following her yet, what are you even doing? Get over there and have a listen to her. She's fantastic. So Dr. Jones and I had a conversation about women's hormones, specifically those at menopause and perimenopause, and basically WTF. And we speak a lot about perimenopause, why perimenopause is such a problem, why it was not a problem for women before, or so we thought. Where are all those symptoms coming from, and how long does it actually last? Because as I say to her in this episode, I can see now that my symptoms started 15 years ago. 15 years. That's crazy to me when I think about that. Like, talk about, that's way longer than puberty is. How is it that we did not recognize this and talk about it before now? Listen in when I make a reference to hurricanes in the context of this very thing. So Dr. Carrie Jones and I talked about how she became a naturopath that specialized in hormonal health for women, what happens when she took her master's of public health and how much training she got on women's health. We talk about progesterone sensitivity, testosterone dosing, estradiol dosing, and how the experience of hormone replacement therapy is very much a moving target. And you have to be able to have open communication with your doctor at the right time in order to, and ongoing, in order to get your prescription optimized, and how problematic that can be in a lot of ways for a lot of women. We talk about all of this. We also talk about women's mental health, women's brain health, and what happens when estradiol in particular, which has effects on the brain and neurotransmitters, what happens when estradiol goes low and how essentially everything changes. Great conversation. Again, Dr. Jones, another OG, just like me. Let me introduce her properly. Dr. Carrie Jones, naturopathic doctor, is an internationally known, recognized speaker, consultant, author, and educator on the topic of women's health and hormones with over 20 years in the industry. Dubbed the Queen of Hormones, Dr. Jones is a naturopathic physician who did her 2-year residency focused on women's health and endocrinology. She went on to get her Master's of Public Health, which was one of the first to become board certified through the American Board of Naturopathic Endocrinology, and is a Menopause Society certified practitioner. She was the first medical director for Precision Analytical, which is, of course, the place where the Dutch test comes from, the first head of medical education at Rupa Health, and was on Under Armour's Human Performance Council. She serves as a consultant and educator for several women's health and lab-focused companies. Dr. Jones co-hosted the highly popular show, The Root Cause Medicine podcast, that has over 10 million downloads, and now hosts her own Hello Hormones podcast. She is the Chief Medical Officer at New Ethics Formulations. We'll have the links to all of Dr. Jones' social media, website, podcast, etc. in the show notes today. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having this conversation. Thanks for listening. Without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Carrie Jones. Menopause skin. Nobody's favorite part of the transition at midlife we call perimenopause and menopause. If you're noticing fine lines, wrinkles, or sagging skin, maybe more texture during your menopause, I have some really exciting news for you. Menopause can deplete your skin's collagen, speeding up the aging. But here's the news. Vitale Skincare has built its entire line on the power of GHK-Cu copper peptides, a proven ingredient that signals your skin's stem cells to produce new and healthy collagen. My personal favorite, Vitale's Restorative Skin Cell Serum. I love how it rejuvenates and restores my skin from within, revealing a firmer, more radiant glow. Want to experience this transformation for yourself? Head to vitaleskincare.com and use the code LOVELY at checkout for 20% off. That's vitaleskincare.com, VITALI skin, SKINCARE.com, code LOVELY. Because with Vitale, youthful, vibrant skin is just a step away at any age. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. And today I have a wonderful new friend by the name of Dr. Carrie Jones. If she and I were sitting together knee to knee, we'd probably have to be like, hey, we should probably go have something to eat, or maybe it's bedtime. Sister from another mister, Dr. Jones, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And thank you for your dedication to the cause of women's hormonal health, because I know I have been watching you and your content on social media for as long as I've been paying attention and posting things myself. So thank you for that.
We're the OGs. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And how has it taken so long for the two of us to get together? Oh my God.
I know. We know so many of the same people. We do a lot of the same things. Like, I guess the universe decided this is it. This was the month and the year. So
yes,
we aligned.
Great. It's the perfect time to do so. I love your Instagram post, by the way. It's when I was doing the research for this conversation, I went back through the saved posts I have, because I will often do that if I know I have a guest coming up. I had so many of your posts saved. I was like, usually I use it for inspiration for what to talk about. Like, no, we just need to talk about everything. Clearly, that's what needs to happen here. What is your Instagram at so that people can go take a look now while they're listening?
It is at dr.carriejones.
Amazing. All right. And this is my poor Indiana Jones referral. But as I started with this conversation, the Dr. Jones.
And I responded with, you call him Dr. Jones, lady. Every time.
So good. So I'm not even the first to do that. Wow, I'm so disappointed. And also proud.
But very proud. Yes.
Yes.
Well, nowadays, Gen Z, they don't even know who Dr. Jones is. So they haven't seen any of those movies. They don't know anything about it. Oh, I know.
I asked a kid yesterday, I made a Jedi reference, and he was like, crickets. And I was like, whoa. Oh. I know, I was treating his mom, and I said to him, when you get home today, you tell your mom you want to watch Star Wars. Important. Yeah, it's kind of important, but we grew up with all of that, right?
Yeah, most definitely. It raised us.
It sure, in a lot of ways. And here we are, scrappy as hell with a microphone, and nobody's surprised because this is how we were raised.
Drinking out of garden hoses.
100%.
Yes, nobody, 100%. They had to have a commercial at night. I don't know if they had it there, but in the States we had, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Because we were all out feral.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. Mom would literally open the screen door and say, kids, bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Like, that was.
Yep.
And
we had a neighbor that whistled. And my parents would say, when Mr. Isaacs whistles for his kids, you have to come home. All right. So we listen for Mr. Isaacs' whistle.
Can you imagine that happening now? Like, it just
Never
wouldn't
in
happen.
a million years, which I think is why you scrappy is exactly who we are, is
Yeah.
Gen X and the late millennials.
Yep.
We
Yep.
are. And now we're scrapping our way through perimenopause and menopause. So,
And
and
thank God
we're doing it differently.
we are 100% doing it differently. And like I say to my younger patients is, reach out to your Gen X sister
Mm-hmm.
and the elder millennials, reach out to us because we have already been through this. We know exactly what should happen and what's going on. Your doctor probably still doesn't even know what's
Yeah.
happening and what's going on, but reach out to someone you know that's a little bit older, your auntie, your cousin, your neighbor, your whatever. And it's because I think we have been unwilling to accept the status quo. Most of us, I know this is true for me and a lot of my friends at 52, is that a lot of us have had parents, grandmothers, mothers, aunties go down to frailty,
Mm-hmm.
to broken hips, to dementia. And I am not playing like that. I
Yeah.
refuse.
Yep. I
What do you think?
100%. 100%. I think when it hit us, because we've had to piece so much together through our whole life, and we were obviously the generation that didn't start out with the internet and phones and all that stuff, and then we had to adapt to that. Like we're an adaptable group. So when perimenopause hits us, we're like,
No.
no, thank you. Like, I'm gonna figure this one out. And I think you're right. I think prior generations accepted it as is. Like my mom watched her mom, so my grandmother, and went, okay, that's just what we have to accept. And then I watched my mom, and I was like, oh, absolutely not. My mom was hot all the time. We called our house subarctic, how cold she had to have it. And, just the balance, at some point, my mom is going to break a hip. I just know it. Unfortunately, cognition, just a lot of things I'm watching as my parents get older. I'm like, I feel like a lot of that, if she had known versus all the fear and scare, could have been prevented. And
Yeah.
that's what our generations are like. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that.
No. And we saw we were able to see through the BS that comes out of Western medicine quite quickly. And I don't know if that's
Yes.
our training. You as a naturopathic physician, me as a chiropractor, we there's a little bit of respect, but also kind of like, okay, let's present an alternative to
Mm-hmm.
what the standard operating procedure is for whatever tidbit of women's health that we are talking about.
Yeah, and we have so many more options now, and we have so much more opportunity to get that education, to search, to ask. We're in communities, we're in groups, we have social media, or live in person if you're in moms groups or friend groups or community groups or whatever. And we're not shy. We've never been shy, and so we're going to ask, hey, is anyone? I'm in a local group for my cities because I like to learn things and see what's going on in events and openings. And I would say about a couple times a month, a woman will be like, I'm having all these symptoms. What woman's health doctor that knows hormones do you know? And it
Yeah.
blows up with comments. Somebody may post about a new restaurant that's opening and people are like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But you ask a group of women about who's your favorite doctor? Where should I go? Hundreds of comments respond with recommendations. And I love that it's not hidden anymore. It's not embarrassed. It's not embarrassing. It's not like, oh my God, I can't talk about my vaginal dryness or my hot flashes. That's awkward.
Yeah.
Now we're like announcing it on social media. Now it's become memes. Like,
oh yeah, sure
now we tell everybody. We're loudmouthed about it. And honestly, the other thing I realized too is not only the opportunity for the ability to learn and what we have available, but women now don't have to be reliant on anybody. My grandmother's generation, your grandmother's generation, was very reliant, probably if they were married, on their husband. And so now this generation, a lot of the women I know are kicking ass and taking names. They are financially just fine. And so they're not going to put up with whether it's medicine telling them there's nothing wrong, you're fine, that's part of being a woman, or whatever. They're like, no, thank you. I've built this big business. I've raised this kick-ass family. I'm doing just fine. I'm not accepting that as the status quo.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, what's the way I want to say this? I love the conversation about, I teach a group of women that to become menopause coaches like I am. Okay. I call them menopause doulas to be.
I love it.
When they are certified, they will be able to go out and coach other women. And what I teach them is about being well-resourced, because when women are well-resourced, time, money, connections, the communities are healthier. The people are healthier. Seniors are better cared for. The childcare is better. The food situation is better. The libraries are better.
Yeah.
Like, we need the women to take over. And Carrie, it's going to be our generation that'll do it, because, you know,
Yeah.
we have been, I actually said this to my sister-in-law recently. I said, you know, rest up. I know it's upsetting what you're seeing. It's upsetting to me too, but rest up, because the request for our leadership is coming shortly. The world needs a woman's wisdom.
Yeah.
Where are the grandmothers? The
Yes.
grandmothers have been unable to help us out because they were denied hormones.
Yes.
Our generation, not on my watch.
And we see it over and over and over again. There's an entire movement. There's now a best-selling book out about We Do Not Care, the We Do Not Care Club by creator Melanie. Yeah. And, you know, like a million women are in this group. It went, her guide and workbook went to a bestseller because so many women resonated with the message. Like, we do not care. We're not taking this BS anymore.
No. Thank you very
much.
Yes, exactly. I bought the book. It's on my stack.
I love it.
Okay, tell me, how did you find yourself talking about women's health, hormonal health in particular?
I knew since I was a little kid that I wanted to be a doctor, and I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician or an OBGYN because I wanted to focus on families, like heavier on the mother. And then I got into medical school and I met my mentor, and she was 100% women's health. That's all she did. And I was like, instantly, yep, this is it. This is what I want to know. And what was fascinating to me was it came very easily to me, clicked very quickly. Whereas for other people, other things click, whether it's neurology or, you know, osteopathy or, you know, whatever it is, pediatrics, like those things click fast. Hormones clicked for me. And I realized a lot of women just didn't know about hormones. So when I would tell people, oh, I'm at medical school, I'm going to be in women's health and hormones, I would get a million trillion questions. I was everyone's best friend at a party or a bar or a restaurant or a networking group of like, well, I have this thing, or I have this question, or I don't understand. And at the time I was very young, in my young 20s, and I would have patients who would be in their 50s or 60s who didn't know anything about their body. And they had children, they'd been married or were still married. And I was like, how do you not know? Of course you don't know. Like, why would you know? This was never taught. And so it became a mission. And when I was younger, the topics of conversation that I lectured about, talked about, wrote about, presented about were younger, right? Getting pregnant, preconception, PMS, PCOS, endometriosis. And then as I got older, I would have patients go, you just wait. When you turn 45, you won't be able to drink wine or sleep. Like, happy birthday to you. And I was like, no way. I'm going to have this figured out. I'm going to cure it. Yeah. And then I hit 44 and I was like, damn it, I'm not sleeping. I for sure can't drink wine anymore. And I was starting to notice, my first symptom was I joke with this story, but I had a really great idea. I was sitting at this computer, at this desk with this background. And I was like, oh my God, that's a brilliant idea. And I moved my finger to my computer to open a new tab. And by the time I opened the tab, I couldn't remember what the idea was. And I knew immediately it was I was like, damn, perimenopause, it got me. And so obviously my transition of topics, lectures, education, podcasts has been, it ages with me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't talk about pre-fertility. I don't do much of that pre-fertility counseling anymore like I used to, but that's no surprise because I don't bleed anymore. So yeah. Not quite fully graduated to menopause yet, but again, that's just sort of an arbitrary thing too. That's something, you know, is it 12 months? Sure. If you need to throw a label on it, fine. Right. But that's all just fine. Okay. I want to talk about, you have a master's in public health, correct?
I do. Yeah. And I got it. Interestingly, people go, why'd you get a master's in public health? At the time, years ago, I was working at a clinic here in Portland, and I really wanted to do more boots on the ground, international work in women's health. I wanted to pivot out of the care here. Not that I didn't thoroughly love it, but I needed to change. I wanted to change. I was looking for a change. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do boots on the ground work in other countries. And most of the NGOs, non-governmental organizations they didn't care that I was a doctor. They needed an MPH, a master's in public health. And I went, fine, I will go get a master's in public health. So that's why I got it.
Okay.
And then I never did boots on the ground work, although I do travel quite a bit internationally to lecture on women's health.
Sure. Of course. That's where that came in. So I know when I got a little bit bored in practice, I went and decided to do my diplomate training in functional neurology. So I get it.
I mean, why not?
The brain's cool. All right. It's cool.
Sure.
Just that's what I say to the kids are always like, how did you find yourself here? I'm like, look, I was going to be a journalist, and then I became an archaeologist, and then it was a chiropractor, and now I fix broken brains and women's hormones. So the truth is, just have the freedom to follow your interest. You'll end up where you're supposed to go.
100%.
All of these things contribute. And actually, my anthropology degree, I think about it quite often because I am always thinking about why does the body do what it's doing? What is the evolutionary biology there? And I find that framework is so helpful so many times. But anyways, this is not about me. It's about you. So let's go back to your MPH. My question to you is, how much did you learn about women's health when you were studying, taking your master's in public health?
None. So 0. My master's in public health was definitely more business, more medically clinical focused. So at the time I was a doctor, I was in full-time practice. And in fact, my master's thesis was on, I of course used clinical application for women's health. That's what I wrote. It is part like in my thesis, but it wasn't the heavy hitter at all in what we learned about public health. And again, it wasn't what the program I was in was definitely much more businessy, platformy, clinical, as opposed to actual.
Let's talk about the demographics.
The nitty gritty, demographics into women's health and public health at large. And I did that specifically because I knew I was like, okay, I'll probably be in clinics. I'll be working with these NGOs in other countries. I need that aspect. I have the clinical. I'm very in debt for the clinical, but I needed the MPH part of it if I was going to go that route.
Yeah, that's fair. So you have been called the queen of hormones. There's got to be a story there.
I think because I've been doing it for so long and I was blessed to be on so many podcasts and so many stages. And I always talk about hormones. I didn't have a fear about talking about hormones. I prescribed hormones. I prescribed compounding hormones, which, God forbid. And so people were like, man, you're just like the queen of hormones because you have no fear talking about it and you have a lot of experience. And so it stuck as people said it over and over and over again because I've been talking about it, teaching about it, lecturing about it, working in the lab space with it for so long. I'm definitely like you, an OG in this field. There are, thank goodness, there are practitioners who are just coming to it. They're just learning how to prescribe. They're just realizing hormones aren't going to kill you if you start them. And so, they're new and it's exciting. And I'm like, oh, friend, oh, goodness, I've been doing this a long time.
Let me hold your hand.
Yes.
Come sit at my knee.
Yes. When they're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can compound, I can write a prescription for compound. I'm like, you're not going to kill them. Like, of course you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's always helpful to remember that we have this fear of hormones that comes out of the Women's Health Initiative and some other things too, right? But listen, our brains, our bodies have been exposed to hormones since puberty. What are we so worried about?
Yeah.
For God's sakes, it makes no sense when you think about it like that.
Or the amount we get exposed to in pregnancy. I mean, right, goes through the roof. And then there was no fear about putting women on the birth control pill. It was like, oh God, no, hormones cause cancer. So here's the birth control pill. I'm like, can you make that make sense? Hold on.
Yes, exactly.
Where is the logic in that? Like,
No.
what?
Yeah, exactly. And for the listener, what Dr. Jones is referring to is the fact that the hormones that are in hormone replacement therapy, HT, HRT, MHT, whichever way you want to call it, are actually a fraction. Tiny amount of what's in the birth control pill, but nobody stopped to be worried about the birth control pill. We were all, thankfully, when I was prescribed the pill and I was 21 or something like that, I was loopy as hell. So I was not on it at all. Like, I could not tolerate the estrogen in there at all.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, we know now why that is. But, back then it was just like, all right, well, it's got to be something else. Okay, so let's come back to this prescribing hormones thing. So am I hearing correctly that you have been prescribing hormones right from the start? You never paused. You never said with this Women's Health Initiative thing. Tell me about that.
Yes, my mentor in medical school taught us all right from the get-go. Here's how you prescribe. Here's what you do. Whether we did it conventionally, so through your typical regular pharmacy, Rite Aid, Walgreens, Costco, whatever you got, which are bioidentical or body identical, the kind that look just like your body, or we had it made for you at a compounding pharmacy. So a compounding pharmacy is a pharmacy with a pharmacist, but they are specially designed to whip up, like the old school ways, a mixture just for you. And I have been doing that since 2005 with my own license since 2005 and my own DEA number. So yeah, I've been prescribing for a very long time. And I saw, and what's interesting is like 3 years ago when perimenopause finally hit social media and books were coming out and it was, all the rage. And it was like, there's no such thing as compound. Like we don't do that. It's not FDA approved. And we only do the patch and we only do the progesterone capsule, which here in the US is called Prometrium. And that's all you did. And I was like, we have so many other options. Like,
so many,
like just because the guidelines suggest that, as a wonderful oncologist said to me, guidelines are guidelines. They're not set in concrete, Jesus. And I was like, thank you. But now that's all pivoted. Now I read an article by one of the big time social media OBGYN influencers who were like, yeah, the patch may not work for you. We might have to do the gel or cream, or we may have to do vaginal. And I was like, thank you. Because you were so militant about it a couple years ago that it was the patch or nothing. It was the progesterone pill or nothing. And now, because so many women are elder millennial or Gen X, they'll tell you right there in the comment section, this isn't working for me. I don't like this. I need something else. I'm allergic to the patch adhesive. Like I swallow the progesterone and I get heartburn or constipation or diarrhea, or I get a paradoxical reaction. It keeps me up. What am I supposed to do now? Well, they didn't know because they weren't trained in it. And now that years have gone by and they realize, gosh, there's so many other options out there. Now we're starting to diversify. So it's frustrating as somebody who's been in this space a long time that the pendulum it's finally swinging where it's supposed to swing. I'm like, oh, thank you. Talk about all these options.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a thing I'd love to talk about with you as a prescriber. First of all, for me, I'm not a prescriber, so I had to try to find it. I was living and practicing in the States at that time, when I first started doing it. And so I had companies that were doing troches and
yes. Yeah.
There's one in Oregon that I'm sure we could both talk about that they were the ones who took care of things for me. And that's how I learned to do it. That's how I cut my teeth on it. But one of the things that you've just alluded to that I want to talk about is that hormone therapy is a moving target based on where a woman is in her reproductive life or post-reproductive life, her age, her symptomatology, etc. And I find that this concept is one of the hardest. I think this is one of the reasons why it's so hard for medicine to actually get this done properly is because it's a moving target. It's not just, hey, take a weekend seminar, learn how to prescribe estrogen, progesterone, you're done. Never testosterone, maybe sometimes progesterone, maybe it's synthetic. Oh, we don't have to worry about that. Like we can have that conversation, but it's that whole moving target situation. And what I see the problem with is when women are prescribed something by their Western medicine doctor or the nurse practitioner or naturopath.
Anyone.
We don't. Yeah, exactly. They get symptoms that come back up and they're like, it's not working. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Remember that too much estrogen and not enough estrogen have similar symptoms, right? Too much progesterone, etc. You can do that with all the hormones. It's a moving target. You have to feel comfortable enough with your prescriber to be able to go, yo, it ain't working. This is what's come up. And then the prescriber goes, okay, we need a little more progesterone, maybe a different kind of estradiol, et cetera. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
I've described it as either finding like the right hair care product or like the right shade of eyeshadow or the right face cream. Like, when you were new in your journey or you're like a certain age and you're like, I'm going to change things up. And so you go to the store or you ask your girlfriends and you're like, cool, I'm going to try that. And then it doesn't work for you. It's either the wrong color or your hair is flat and dry or your skin breaks out. And you're like, crap, I just spent all this money. And that's not what I should have done. It's the same in hormone land because estrogen, the main estrogen we're talking about is estradiol. And then we have progesterone. Then we have testosterone. We also have another hormone called DHEA. They are different sized hormones. They are not the same. They are not the same apple to apple to apple to apple. They absorb differently depending on how they go in your body. Progesterone, for example, is a very large molecule and it likes to sit in your fat cells. It's called lipophilic, which is fat loving. So if you topically apply progesterone, for some women, if they have a lot of fat under their skin or a thicker skin, progesterone may not get across or it may just sit there and not go systemic. So then they're like, tried progesterone cream. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, let's make sure it's progesterone cream, like actual literal progesterone cream, not wild yam cream, which is very different and will not turn into progesterone in your body. Let's make sure that. And then second of all, it absolutely could be the thickness of your skin. It could be the area you live in. If you live in a very hot, humid environment and you're trying to put a hormonal cream on top of your skin, it may slide right off. I mean, I'm being a little dramatic, but we have to think about these things. Same for patches. You get an estrogen patch, estradiol patch, but your exercise is swimming, or you're a triathlete, or your stress response is to like, I'm gonna go for a run. So you're sweaty, 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 and then you're like, I hate this dang patch because it feels like it slides off, or it feels like I'm so sweaty, I'm reacting to the adhesive. It's not everybody, but it's enough. I'm seeing it in the Reddit boards. I'm getting it in the DMs where this like subgroup of women are like, I hate the patch. And then they're looking for like a Band-Aid to put over to keep it on, to keep it on. They're like, it's all these steps just to use a patch. I'm like, let's use something else. But they're told, well, the patch is where we start. I'm like, no, we have other options. And the same goes for even vaginal. You get a vaginal cream. So to reduce, some women like that the best route. But if they're still, sexually active, we don't necessarily want any of that hormone cream on your partner. So they need to plan accordingly. And then some women are like, well, then that takes out all the spontaneity. I'm like, okay, so then that route's not right for you. So you can see it does require some back and forth investigation with your prescriber of like, what do you do for a living? Do you co-sleep with your kids? Do you handle kids or animals for a living? Like bare skin, are you touching it? Like just being careful. Do you have a lot of sex? And we just got to be careful not to make sure you don't, get it on your partner. It's a low dose hormone, but still they may not want it or need it. So I'm asking, are you afraid of needles? Because there's injectable options, so you can see there's all these questions, and it just helps me narrow it down to be like, you don't have to start with a patch and the progesterone capsule. We can go other routes. And then it helps better with absorption and lowers, hopefully, the barrier to entry where you're like, oh, this is working for me. Yes, thank you.
That's so helpful. And here's what I hear. I hear this from my women. They say, I don't want to make a fuss with the doctor.
Yeah. Or they'll say, yes.
Or my doctor's busy.
My doctor's busy, or it's hard to get a hold of them, or they told me to wait till my next appointment. Or they'll say, it seems like a giant pain. Like, I don't have the patience for this. I don't have the time for this. My life is so busy. And now I just paid for this. And now you're telling me I have to call my prescriber or send them an email on the portal, tell them what's going on, wait for the nurse to respond, to tell me what to do. Like, can we just one and done it? And I'm like, no. It's like, it's like finding the right lipstick. Unfortunately, and it's expectation management, and that's not what's been put out there for a while. Initially, 3 years ago, it was go on hormone, you're going to feel amazing. The goddess is going to possess you and you'll feel great. And all these women would write me, I don't feel great. What happened? Did I fail this? No, you did not fail that. So now it's like expectation management. We might have to go back and forth a few times. You might hate certain parts of it. And guess what? As you move through perimenopause, I may have to switch it then. What worked for you at 44 may not work for you at 49. Totally normal. There's nothing wrong. It's just the progression of how hormones work.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, and of course, we have been culturalized to be quiet and to not talk about
quiet and easy, right?
Yep.
We've got 2-day shipping with Amazon. So it's like, why isn't my patch working? I'm like, what the heck? I don't have time for this. I'm type A, make it work.
I know. And so what happens is women just put it down.
Yeah.
And say and I'm like, it is such an important thing, guys. Carrie and I look at research all the time, and the research is really clear. The sooner you get on hormones, meaning before you stop your menstrual cycle, the sooner you get on the hormones, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and whatever combination that you specifically need. I personally don't like this generalized approach of just throw everything at the wall. I like to say, hey, we need to look and see what your body's actually doing now so we can support it in the phase it's in. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, but also to remember that we are indeed a living, breathing thing that we need that adaptation. I mean, Sephora lets you return things. Yeah. If the lippy doesn't work for you, you can return it to Sephora. I don't think you can do that with a pharmacy, but no. I like that's a good reference. Anyways, yes. What say you?
Yeah, when it comes to like which hormone, because then women get overwhelmed. Well, which one should I do? Social media says this, my sister says this, my best friend says this. So depending where you are, so according to research, there are two stages of perimenopause. I feel we're more multifaceted than two stages, but here we are. So early perimenopause is your cycle has changed by 7 days. It's come 7 days late or it's come 7 days early. And this is assuming you haven't had a hysterectomy, you still get your period. That's early perimenopause. Now, some women go, 7 days? God, I've only changed 3 days, but I'm having all these symptoms. According to me, you were still in early perimenopause. It just, for research purposes, that's what they say. Late perimenopause is once you've skipped 60 days. So 2 months of period you've skipped. Even if you've just skipped 2 months one time, you're considered late stage perimenopause. So you may listen to this and think, oh gosh, yeah, I totally skipped the last 2 months. Or you may be like, I'm 9 months later, I haven't had a period. I'm, close to the end. That's late stage. In early perimenopause, progesterone declines first. That's the hormone that tracks down, 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 down. So you may notice the sleep issues, which is why it's very common, the irritation, the rage, the anxiety. Those tend to be the first symptoms. As you move through, because your estrogen starts fluctuating, eventually it will drop down or it'll fluctuate down more than up. That's when you start to notice the estrogen symptoms most of the time. So the brain fog, the joint pain, the vaginal symptoms, the dryness, dry skin, dry eyes, dry mouth, etc., dry hair. That's when we're like, okay, maybe we consider progesterone and estrogen. It's somewhere in that journey, your testosterone might decline. Now, testosterone doesn't always decline at the same rate as everybody else. So your testosterone, for example, may have bottomed out at 42. Mine at 49 is still holding strong. So you may have needed it way before I need it. And that's why I like to do testing, especially specifically of testosterone, of like, how low are we talking? And I prefer with my patients, if I've seen them long enough, I have a history of their lab work. So then I can track back and be like, oh, dang, in your 30s, your testosterone was so robust. And now it's like cut in a third. Like, no wonder you feel terrible. We can totally add that in. Other women hold steady. They don't lose testosterone until their 50s. And they're doing great. And I think that's important for women to know as well, because again, all over social media is you need testosterone. And I love testosterone, big fan. Mm-hmm. But if you start it too soon, there are some side effects you have to watch for. Anger, irritation, maybe hair loss, depending on the dose, acne, but also weight gain around the middle. And that freaks everybody out. Oh, I'm not taking it. I don't want to gain weight. But it's relative to estrogen. So if you're on testosterone and it's out of balance to estrogen, you can have an increased risk. So now you see like, oh, this is a little bit more of a puzzle. It's not just picking a lipstick at Sephora. It's like a little more advanced than that, where I'm looking at the whole big picture, your symptoms, what you do for a living, what your goals are, and then pulling it all together.
Guys, it's important to test. When you're listening to this conversation, you've heard Dr. Jones and I both refer to the importance of looking to see what actually is going on under the hood, not just guessing and giving hormones. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
I do a lot of testing, but I was in the lab world for about a decade. I guess I should say eyeballs deep in that lab world. So I have a very different perspective because I have 10 years of experience with it. I fully understand why the guidelines say you don't have to test. I understand why all the OBs say you don't have to test. If you've never been in the lab space and seen thousands and thousands and thousands of tests, I get it. I like to test going into perimenopause. Where are you? What's going on? Do you still ovulate? How robust or not are things happening? And obviously I test other stuff, lipids, which is cholesterol, glucose, thyroid, nutrients like vitamin D, iron, etc. And then we follow as you go through, especially if you don't like what you're on. So let's say we test you and your estrogen and progesterone are really quite low. You haven't had a cycle in a while. Obviously your symptoms match. We've done blood work because you need it. And we've added in the hormones. I'm like, yep, like I don't need the blood work to tell me, but there it is. You're super low. And then like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, you're like, some of my symptoms are coming back. We could definitely raise the dose. I can also recheck your estrogen and see from your last test to your current, like what's going on. Testosterone is similar. Testosterone, I can see like how rapidly is that going down versus just putting you on and maybe putting you at risk for side effects. So I do like testing, but I am fully aware I have a different perspective and thousands of lab results under me to understand what I'm looking for and what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a similar approach to it too, because back when I started doing this, what was available for women, doctors were not testing hormones. What was available was for me to order them saliva testing. And so I
Yeah.
have decades of saliva testing, reading those adrenal stress index, the
Mm-hmm.
women's hormone panels, the perimenopause, whatever it is. And so much of what you hear on social media, based on my own experience of looking at those labs, is not at all true. Like, why is everyone talking about high cortisol? Jesus, women, women when we get to
Yeah.
50, we don't have high cortisol anymore. It doesn't happen very often, correct?
Yeah, it's funny. I do see that a lot of like, oh, your cortisol goes up. And for some women, sure. For some women it might, but like, man, you can't predict. And a lot of women hit 50 and are like, I am burned out. I am tired.
Tired. Yes. And I think that's just what happens is it's discernment of where that information is coming from. Because if you
Mhm.
talk to the gym bros, of course, for dudes, elevated cortisol is more of an issue, right? It's
Yes.
just so if you're just extrapolating science
Mhm.
from the dudes and applying it to women, assuming that we're just small men, which you and I know are, that is just not, and anybody
Not the
listening to this
case.
podcast, exactly. It's not the case. But a lot of medicine is based on the fact of the assumption, because the research
Mhm.
was not there for so long, and we're just starting to get that research now. It's going to take us so long to get caught up
Mhm.
that, the extrapolation was, well, if it doesn't harm a man at this dose, then a woman's dose should be half of that and it'll be fine.
Right. Right. The other thing I'll caution about is I do see some of the gym bros, some of the uneducated gym bros who will tell women you don't need hormones. But what you
Oh
do need to
yeah.
clean up are all the foundational things. You need to lift weights and you need to do this and that. And then once you do that, then maybe you can have hormones. Meanwhile, he's on testosterone and growth hormone peptides and this and that and all the DHEA and all these other things. And I'm like, whoa, bro.
Yeah.
No. Yes, the
Uh-huh.
foundations are important. Absolutely. I preach
Yeah.
about them all the time.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
she can go on hormones.
Yeah, stop gatekeeping shit. And
Yes.
I personally am just tired of being told what is appropriate for my own physiology from a guy. Thankfully, I filtered all of that out at this point, and there are great guys out there that are practitioners, and so I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about
Totally.
the ones that are dispensing shinfo, is what we call in this house, shitty info.
Shinfo. Yes.
Okay, so perimenopause is so annoying.
Okay, you want to know what's funny? This is so funny I love that you said that. Probably 2 years ago, yeah, I'd say about 2 years ago, I feel you. Perimenopause is annoying. I always say, if I was the goddess of the female body, I don't want to be goddess of the whole world. That seems like a big job. I don't have the
Yeah,
stress. I don't have the cortisol for that. But the female
exactly.
body could use some updates, like your phone. So I would love to have that. And I would made a post about this, and I put it in my newsletter. Like, holy crap, I feel you. It's annoying. It's all get out, And this founder of a women's health tech startup, which is no longer in existence, wrote a response, a rebuttal newsletter, and she was like, "Oh, well, I guess women's health is just annoying now. I guess it's just a problem. I guess it
Oh,
was
come
super
on.
snotty and it was all about like metamorphosis and you just need to embrace who you're becoming and you're a butterfly and it's all this ethereal and it's going to be great and you're stepping into your next field." And I'm like, have you read my DMs of the
Yeah.
women who are falling apart and nobody
Yes.
is listening to them? The women who are
Yes.
having massive panic attacks and heart palpitations and like joint pain that they can't, they think they have fibromyalgia and something's broken. Like they can't
Yep.
move their shoulder. And the women that are so deep in depression and the women who have no energy. Like, have you met these women? Could you
Clearly
imagine
not.
saying to these women, it's a
Yeah.
metamorphosis. Just step out like a butterfly. I was like, oh, you're blocked. No. It is annoying for a
Yeah.
lot of women.
And for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm 52. When I look back at it now, and as I said, I'm in the year of not having a period. So
This is
soon I
the
will
year.
soon I will graduate. Uh
And
my
no
symptoms,
crown, no
oh,
watch, no party. Like, why don't, like, that's designed poorly. We need to
yeah,
have,
I agree. I agree.
right? Like a whole
That's
thing
an
around it.
update that needs to happen.
Yes.
I look back and my symptoms started at 37. So now I'm
Oh,
15 years into perimenopause. Now, what the hell?
yeah.
Like, and somehow this was never a thing before our generation. I don't buy that for a second. I think that the culture said, hey, listen, women just need to stay thin, pretty, and quiet, as Glennon Doyle says, and not complain about things.
Well, they had nowhere to complain. We had no social media. We had no online. Doctors didn't know. They weren't listening. Like, this is why women were committed to institutes.
Ugh.
I mean, if you go back, I do get this pushback a lot of like, there was no such thing, or in certain cultures it didn't exist, etc. And I do believe it's worse now, which we could argue a lot of things: our food, our community, our stress, our environmental toxicant exposure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? There's a lot that could make our perimenopause worse. It doesn't mean it didn't exist back then. I mean, if Aristotle, I believe it was talking about it, that's a long time ago.
A long time.
That's pretty far back.
We didn't used to talk about hurricanes either, and now we have whole news channels dedicated to it. So,
but we've always had them. We just didn't know what to call them, you know? And menopause wasn't actually defined until the 1800s. Finally, a doctor was like, menopause, the pause in menstruation.
Yeah.
But it was happening. Women were getting institutionalized and lobotomized and committed, and hysterical, like hysterectomy. Yes, it was happening. It just wasn't, we didn't have social media back then. We didn't have all the access on our phone and watch and computer and tablet like we have now.
Yeah, your neighbor wasn't talking about it because
nobody was talking about it. It was uncouth to talk about it. My grandmother would never have talked about it.
No way.
No way. My grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and they told my grandfather, not her. That's the generation that my grandparents were in. They called him, not her. You think she's going to talk about her perimenopause? No way.
No way. And of course, our grandmother's era couldn't get a credit card or a loan by themselves. And so they certainly aren't going to talk about the fact that they're bleeding like they've been injured or, having miscarriages or hot flashes or any of those other things. Like you said, uncouth was the word that was used in my house too. That's not ladylike. We don't talk about it.
And if it hurt, you just drank. Happy hour started at 5
until 44, and then shit comes up. Okay. Well, the other thing to remember too, again, evolutionary biology helps me so much in this. Not that many generations ago, 1901, the expected life expectancy for a woman was expected to live to 51. That's it. That's not perimenopause. That's like you perimenopause, you're dead. Right? Yeah. Some women got to menopause, some didn't.
Yeah.
So it's really it's one of those things that we're going to see change because we're living so much longer. It's that health span versus lifespan thing that, thanks to Peter Attia, we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's important because people say, well, why wasn't it an issue? Well, it's because we weren't really looking, boo. And not that long ago, women didn't live that long. So,
well, in the history books weren't going to put that in there. Could you, I mean, right? Like if you think about it, who are the history books written by?
Men.
Men. They're not going to put like Queen so-and-so reported her hot flashes today. No, Queen so-and-so was just beheaded. Like we just got rid of Queen so-and-so,
Yeah. Queen so-and-so has been bleeding for the last 14 days, so much so that she can't even leave the house.
Right.
She can't leave the castle.
We can't understand why she's so rageful at court. Oh, I can understand. I know why Queen so-and-so is rageful.
Yes. And you know what I found was a helpful reframe for me as I got deeper into my own perimenopause was starting to talk to the post-meno ladies who said, wait for it. It gets so much better.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm feeling that now myself.
Yes. And I love that you said that because we laugh and we joke, we annoying and what have you, but I definitely want it framed super positively. I mean, reality is it is annoying. There are annoying symptoms that happen, but I'll be 49 this year, and my perimenopause, knock on wood, we're just going to knock on some wood over here. Not that bad. Like I get like itchy ears and like I said, I had the brain fog moments and weird things pop up and go away. But in the grand scheme of what I see in the DMs, I'm like, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. This is great. And I'm also loving who I'm becoming. I'm loving, I've always been outspoken, but now I'm like, the hardest boundary outspoken person ever. Like, and I don't care. Not only do I not care, I wish somebody would. So, and I love this. One of my girlfriends is in her young 40s and we traveled for work together and she's very much a people pleaser. She's the most extreme people pleaser I've ever met. And I go, how old are you again? And she was like, I'm 42. I was like, oh, you're not there yet. You'll lose that. You'll lose that.
Yes, absolutely you will. I had somebody ask me recently about imposter syndrome. She said, when does the imposter syndrome go? Someone much younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, huh. And I realized when she asked me that question that I hadn't felt it myself for quite a while. And I was like, oh shit, is this one of those things that happens? It just goes
Yeah.
away? Oh my God, yes, what a relief. And
Yeah.
for the listeners, it's the biological impetus that these hormones make us pleasing to others for the process and purpose of reproduction.
Yep.
When
And
the
save the family.
hormones
Yep.
Yes, when the hormones go away, so do those behaviors. Now, some women cling to those behaviors because they're attached to their identity. That's a
Yep.
different thing that I'm talking about here. But you, as you talked about your friend, if she chooses to continue to people please after menopause, that's just her decision and it's
Yes.
okay. But I'm here to say a lot of that stuff goes away. The
And I see it.
layers.
My last post on Instagram was similar, and I said it, it in your 40s, and I had so many women comment, "Oh, girl, wait till you hit 50." So many positive 50 plus commenters were like, "Oh, you're not even to the best part yet. Like, it's just getting good. You wait." And I was like, "Oh, thank God." I had the
pleasure.
I
We
know
need these stories.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's the brain researcher of the
Yes.
XX brain and menopause brain, and she said, when women go through perimenopause, just as you said, we remodel out of our brain a lot of wires, connections, neurons, specifically for reproduction, whether you wanted children or not. In puberty, we get wired up for it. And so we get wired for things like caretaking, nurturing. Not everybody got wired the same, I'm aware. But like in general, we got wired to hear, like, be alert for our children in the middle of the night, our menstrual cycle. And she said a lot of that wiring goes away. It's a clean house. And I said, so it's kind of like living through a remodel or living through like a closet overhaul. You throw out all the crap that doesn't fit you anymore, doesn't serve a purpose. Your clubbing dresses and your clubbing heels. You're like, who am I thinking? Let's get rid of these.
Yeah.
And then you're left with she was like, that's 100% what it's like. But you have to go through the remodel and the clean out process, which we know is a mess. And then eventually on the other side, it's all the neurons you do need. And I love that frame because I was like, oh yeah, brain, have at it. Take away the pathways that are using a lot of nutrients and ATP energy, but I don't really need anymore. Let's donate those.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept too. She refers to it as a renovation.
Yes.
And that renovation piece, that research that she did was coming out the same time we saw the paper out of the UK that talked about mental illness and menopause.
Yes.
Women's. And there was a moment that was so clear for me when these two, the XX brain and the papers behind it, and the research on mental illness coming out. I felt this moment of complete clarity where I understood, guys that are listening, women are more likely to take their lives during the perimenopause era than any other time in our lives. And we have a lot of things to clean up as a culture and a community. Medicine can be helpful, but oftentimes the doctors aren't trained to catch this, that the problems that are the mental illness, the mental health things that come up at perimenopause are very much related to what Dr. Mosconi talked about.
Yeah.
When you interviewed her about that renovation, about that pruning away, but it can feel very unmooring when it happens.
Yes.
And depending on what else is going on in your life, if you have support or not, we can lose women to that.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to that is likely not another freaking SSRI. It's freaking hormones. Like, wake up.
And it goes back to the conversation when people say, this is a new thing. Women have never had perimenopause before, menopause. And I'm like, how many of your grandmothers were on Valium?
Yeah.
Or some sort of anti-anxiety or some sort of like the old school SSRI medications. Mm-hmm. If anyone has watched, this will completely date us, the movie Beetlejuice, when the mother comes out on her Valium, she's going to go take her Valium and go to bed. Of course she is. She's clearly menopausal, perimenopausal,
yes.
That's what they did. They put women of that age, you can't sleep, which is a keynote symptom. You have anxiety and depression and you hate everybody and everything. And so you got put on these heavy medications.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we think back, when women are like, holy crap, my grandmother or my mother or my aunts, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, it gets siloed as it's just mental health over here. Meanwhile, we put the age and the hormones over top of it. And you're like, oh, wait, Oh, I see it now. Okay.
Today's episode is sponsored by Berkeley Life, an innovative health brand dedicated to helping women feel vibrant at every stage of life. Now, you've heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating. Menopause isn't just about hormones. Circulation and nitric oxide play a massive role in how we feel day to day. When nitric oxide levels decline, our blood flow slows down, which can affect everything from energy and focus to intimacy and comfort. Berkeley Life recently ran a 60-day pilot study with women taking their nitric oxide supporting supplement, and the results were incredible. 75% of the women in the study reported improved desire, 75%. 83% experienced enhanced orgasm and comfort, and over half noticed better natural lubrication. Wow, yes please. These are the kinds of changes that happen when we support healthy blood flow and oxygen delivery throughout the body. It's not just about one system, guys. It's about the whole you. I love sharing tools that help women thrive. That's what this whole entire show is about. And Berkeley Life is doing just that. Learn more and explore their nitric oxide supporting supplements at berkeleylife.com. That's BerkeleyLife.com. Thanks, Berkeley Life. Let's talk about something no one warned women about. What happens to your vagina at menopause? If sex suddenly feels uncomfortable, if dryness showed up out of nowhere, if your body feels like it aged 10 years overnight and it's not just getting older, that's estrogen leaving the building. Up to 57% of postmenopausal women deal with vaginal atrophy, and yet most never get help. Why? Because prescriptions are awkward, doctors downplay it, and women are taught to just tolerate it. Hard pass. That's why I love Velvet V, a vaginal moisturizer created by hormone expert Karen Martell. It's a vaginal moisturizer with estriol and DHEA, two hormones your vaginal tissue is literally starving for, delivered in a clean, vagina-friendly base. No fragrance, no fillers, no sketchy ingredients. And the science is solid. Estriol has been shown to increase vaginal moisture and support collagen production and thinning tissue, which means more comfort, more sensation, and yes, better orgasms. Women report feeling a difference within weeks. Less dryness, less pain, more confidence in our bodies again. And here's a wild little bonus tip. Karen told me to use the Velvet V on the backs of my hands too. Why? Because estrogen helps thicken skin and improve collagen. And if you're not ready for old lady hands, this trick is gold. Here's the best part. No prescription, no doctor visit, just smart hormone support for midlife women. Go to midlifesolutions.org and use code LOVELY to get 10% off your first order. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and grab her estrogen face cream, because glowing skin and great sex shouldn't be optional in midlife. And because you've had the clinical practice experience, you'll be able to confirm what I'm about to say. One of the things that surprised me most as a new practitioner all those years ago was just how many women were taking the SSRI class of medication, or antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications. Whereas 20 years ago, I don't think we had anti-anxiety meds yet. They weren't separated out yet. It was just...
Well, we just knocked them out. Valium.
Yeah. Or Ativan. It was
Ativan.
Or
Ativan.
Yep. Or, and then it was just after the Prozac era. So we were out of the MAOI inhibitors and into something different. And 1 in 3, I was seeing 1 in 3 at that time, women that were coming to see me that were taking some. And sometimes it would be more than others. And I look at probably that moment of clarity I was talking about when looking at Mosconi's research and Dr. Roberta Britton. Those two, my God, those two have the best research. It's like catnip for me.
Yes.
I want to just...
Yes.
I just want to eat it up. They are some of the world's best researchers, as far as I'm concerned, on women's health, and especially women's health related to hormones and women's health, brain health in particular at menopause. Really what I want to do with that information, as you talked about Dr. Mosconi's research, is start to bring awareness. And I do this with my doula students is, listen, catch the women before they go down the rabbit hole of I'm broken, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
so many opportunities to catch women before we go down that rabbit hole. So if the doctors can't do it, you can be the person in the community that's maybe more accessible,
Mhm.
maybe easier to talk to, and then you use your network to
Yeah.
refer them to whoever is going to be compassionate and offer care.
Yes. And it's so common.
Yeah.
It is
Eh,
so common. And I think because in some cases of perimenopause, it's like that the analogy of slow cooking a frog. You know, a frog is in a pan and you start to heat and it's slow, 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 and it doesn't realize it until it's too late. For a lot of women, if you don't understand the hormone aspect, which why would you? We were never taught it, then all of a sudden you're down this slow roll path of depression and anxiety and ideations. And
Yeah.
you're like, what is happening to me? This
Mhm.
must be my reality now, because it
Yeah.
wasn't just a flash. It wasn't like you were dropped into boiling water and you were like, oh my gosh, suddenly I'm having panic attacks. Like, we had to address this. It becomes this slow roll. And I find that with a lot of women in a lot of symptoms. It's a slow roll into joint pain. They're a little stiff in the shoulder here and there, suddenly a little stiff in the hip. You know, a year goes by, now their skin is cut, like their muscles are kind of, they're like, oh gosh, I guess this is aging. I must be aging, must be fibromyalgia. And it just, anything, you know, and
Yeah.
nobody's waving a flag going, actually, it's because of your hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to break it to a 36-year-old and a 41-year-old in clinic in the last month that their symptoms were likely related to perimenopause. And to see that look, one of them in particular fought for it to be anything other than.
I don't blame them.
I don't blame him either. But what I said is, listen, we've learned so much in the
Yeah.
last 10 years. Like, that's what I said to her, like, lean on an auntie or a cousin or a
Hmm.
friend that's a little bit older, because I promise you we've got wisdom to share about this. It's not scary. But I think it's just an injury. I'm like, yep. So let's talk about what happens when the hormones start to
Yeah.
decline in your soft tissues. Okay, let's come
Yes.
back to the mental health thing for a second. One of the symptoms that I like to mention often, especially with my students and my patients, is anhedonia, which is, of course,
Yes.
the loss of joy. I experienced this myself, and I'm a fairly colorful person. I like life. I like the
Yes.
experience of things and people, right?
Mhm.
And just waking up one day and realizing that I could not have given a shit about whether or not I did my hair or my makeup, or I just give me a sheet to wrap myself in. I didn't care. And I was like, what is happening? That was actually one of the most scary moments for me in my perimenopause. And it came late. I think it was related to falling off the estrogen cliff, which
Yeah.
does happen. Let's talk about that, please.
There's a couple of things that'll just help give people the why, so they have a little more science around it. One thing, so to make the hormone serotonin in your brain, the original starting position is tryptophan, and tryptophan turns into 5-HTP. Now, some people might go, like the supplement, yes, but you make it in your body. So to get from tryptophan to 5-HTP, estradiol, which is the estrogen we've been talking about, is a big trigger for that. Estradiol helps you make the enzyme that makes that conversion to 5-HTP, and then you go on and make serotonin. Well, if you don't have a lot of estradiol floating around, you may not make a lot of 5-HTP, and therefore you may not make a lot of serotonin. Well, guess what? 2 steps after serotonin is melatonin. So you also may not sleep all that well. Either your deep sleep or your REM sleep, your ability to fall asleep can be affected. Estradiol is also a big trigger in the body to make oxytocin. Oxytocin we think of all the time with like breastfeeding, because it's the loving, bonding hormone. It's the mothering hormone. But really, it's our community hormone. It's an anti-stress hormone. It makes us feel one with the people. It makes us want to go out and go to the store or hang out with our friends or love our spouse or be engaged. When you don't have a lot of oxytocin, like, you don't feel any of that crap. You're like, no, I don't feel love. I don't feel joy. I don't feel community. I'm definitely not going out in the community. That's a hard no. So we lose that ability. And then the third way that comes up a lot is dopamine. And we all know dopamine from, like, it's anticipatory, that when you when you go shopping, when you take your first bite of cake, when you get on social media and all of a sudden you're doom scrolled, an hour later, that's all dopamine related. Well, estradiol plays a role depending on the part of the brain in dopamine as well. So now you lose estradiol, it's dropped down, or it's fluctuating, but dropping down more than up. And now you've got this issue with serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, just to name 3. And it's no wonder you are depressed or anxious, rageful, not feeling engaged, or full blown anhedonic. You have no joy
It's
when
a
you're used
terrible
to.
feeling.
It's
Yeah,
a terrible feeling.
it really,
And then
really is.
here's what's crazy. Because we are people pleasers, we're primed to be people pleasers. We're like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Right? What's wrong with me? I must have done something. You go to a doctor or practitioner and they're like, well, you must be under a lot of stress. You need to cut back your stress in your life, right? It's pointing the finger, you. And really, you had no control over the fact that your estradiol is down. It's
No.
that like that was out of your hands. That's aging. Like you don't have a choice. It's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can replace estradiol. We can do HRT, MHT, HT, whatever you call it. But instead, we're left to think, I must be doing something. Or somebody tells you, buck up, you have a great life. What's wrong with you? You have great
Yeah.
kids. You have a great partner. You have a great job. Like, what is your problem?
What's your problem?
Yeah, you should go
exactly.
see psych. That'll help. Well, psych is helpful, but it's not going to get your estrogen back. So
Yeah. No, no. And so when you supplement estrogen, what Carrie is saying is it's going to feed all those neurotransmitters
yes.
downstream. Oftentimes I'll hear women say, less so now. Women will say, well, do I have to take it for the rest of my life? And I said, I promise you that once you actually get hormone optimized, you won't want to go without it.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the research the way I look at it, you wouldn't want to be without it, right? We're getting really clear on the protection qualities for a woman's body, brain, bones, heart, breasts, you name it, come from hormone replacement therapy. And so, there's just not the era of questioning it is I think over. And I did my own episode with, because I mostly interview guests these days, but every once in a while I'll get a wild hair and just the episode I did was, I believe that at a woman's checkup, medical checkup, yearly checkup, when she turns 40, she should be offered progesterone. Full stop. I think it should be a matter of course, the same way we're looking at when do we start statins and what's your is your blood pressure high? Okay, now we're going to start at a certain age. It's going to be this and that a woman should be offered progesterone, because that really is it's the gateway to HRT, if you will.
The gateway. And it's I want to go back to, you said you have your patient who was 36 and 41. Some people go, oh, that's so young. It's probably something else. Are you sure? And I agree. Like, let's hope it's not something else. Let's do the workup. But I routinely, again, I have people who comment or talk to me at conferences and they will say, yeah, my mom went through menopause at 44. So obviously by 36, 37, perimenopausal. If you're done early, I'm not done, you're not done, but like our genetics maybe are later, or, things we do in our life push us later. But for a lot of women, they're done by their mid 40s. So it makes perfect sense if they're 37 going through perimenopause.
Yep. Yep. And I know for me in my own family history, I remember when my mom had a hysterectomy. I was 13, so she was 40. But I remember it being very, very hush hush. Why did she have that? Because she had fibroids and she was heavy bleeding. That was the answer for medicine at that time, was to take her uterus. Of course, she died of dementia 2 years ago. And so we know now that when we take a woman's uterus, women who have been hysterectomized have a higher incidence of dementia. So when I'm talking about these things are personal for me. They are in my own health and my own health history. And when I look back, I have no information about my grandmother's menopause, perimenopause, certainly not perimenopause, but for sure. I could guess one of them when the menopause happened, but it was never discussed. And the only reason I know anything about my mother's menopause is because I was old enough to remember her heavy bleeding and being uncomfortable and having a hysterectomy.
Yeah. My mom was 54 when she went through. And I remember because she called me, I was probably 23. She called me at work and said, I'm 54 years old and I just got my period. I'm the oldest woman to go through perimenopause. And I was like, no, the average age is 51, 52. You're just later. And it stopped. Like that was the year it stopped. That was that she did hit the 12 months and 54. So me being 49, still having regular cycles, I'm like, genetically coupled with, I'm assuming health and lifestyle is the cherry on top. Yeah. I'll be in my early 50s as well.
Yes, yes. And we know that women who cycle later, go through menopause later, you're exposed to your own natural hormones later. So we know there's health benefit to that as well. But that one we can manage with supplementing. If you've gone through it at 44, it doesn't mean you're going to have a bunch of extra stuff. It just means let's make sure you get some hormones on board to support your.
And don't let somebody tell you, well, we have to wait till you're 51.
No.
I have had doctors say, even though you went through menopause at 44, the average age isn't till 51. So we're going to wait and do hormones at 51. Wait for what? What are we waiting for? 7 months or 7 years?
Yes.
Wait for what?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I think is absurd, exactly. Don't wait.
Yeah.
I encourage my patients to be a little bit pushy.
Yeah.
Be a little bit. I've had to do it with my own practitioners. So just tell them what you want, right? Don't assume that they know what you want. Doctors are way too busy to remember that stuff. Yeah. They, especially here in Canada, the volume that they have to see here in Canada, the GPs, they will not remember that. You literally have to go in, advocate for yourself. Don't have your story suction cup to your face. Don't give your life history for the last 40 years. I want you get 2 sentences, babe. Tell the doctor what you want and tell them why you're there. Tell them what you want, and then shut up and let the doctor do the work.
Yes. I was at a conference last fall, and it was a hormone. It's the intro to BHRT, bioidentical hormone therapy conference. There are about 300 practitioners. You had to be a practitioner to attend, a prescriber. And one of the speakers raised their hand or said to the audience, raise your hand if you have never prescribed a hormone before. And this is the fall of 2025. So they said, raise your hand if you've never prescribed a hormone before. And if you plan to start prescribing hormones in 2026, 75% of the room raised their hand.
Wow.
Which was exciting, but also this is what you're up against. The guy next to me was an ER doctor, and he said, I'm an ER doctor. I've never prescribed a hormone in my life, but this is where I think I'm going to pivot into. So I'm here to learn the basics. I was like, bro, if you can be an ER doctor, you can prescribe hormones. It's going to be fine. Like, don't even stress about it. But my point is, when women go, I'm nervous. I don't know if I should ask. Shouldn't the doctor know or nurse practitioner know? No. In a room of 300 people, 75% had never prescribed before ever in their career. So if you say to them, hi, I'm here for perimenopause. Here are my top 3 symptoms. Here's what do you think about? I would love to start with a patch and the progesterone. Like, let's start there. They're probably going to go, yeah, sure, fine. Because I don't know.
Well, I can do that. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, like
I can move on.
That's in my system. I can prescribe that right out of the computer. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And awareness of just how much of a vacuum of information around prescribing and women's health at midlife is also really helpful for context for the women that don't want to be the squeaky wheel. I'm like, babe, you need to be the squeaky wheel to advocate for yourself. You absolutely do. Because I promise you, everybody around you that's on hormones, 30 years from now, you're going to wish like hell that you'd been the squeaky wheel and started earlier. You know, that was one of the things after the retraction of the Women's Health Initiative. I was thinking back to the women in my practice. And of course, as a chiropractor, I have patients that have been with me decades.
Yeah. Yep.
Families that have been with me decades. So I get to know my people really well.
Yeah.
And I thought, who are the women that are who are doing well, despite the fact that they were either pulled off their hormones or whatever. And what I realized was I had a whole collection of women in their late 70s or 80s that never listened to their doctors, didn't stop taking their hormones. And these women were, they had the pain and arthritis of aging, but mentally sharp, 100% there and engaged. And they didn't, I had one of them say to me, because I asked, and then I started to ask questions like, were you ever told to stop taking your hormones? And I had one patient say, oh yeah, the doctor said, well, we should probably transition you off that. You know, there's a new study, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yep, we'll get to that someday. And then it never came up again. And he just kept prescribing the hormones. And of course, we know now we want to do different kind of hormones, but for her, she was on the original HRT, and she's still on it to this day.
There's an amazing hormone educator, Dr. Lindsay Berkson, in her 70s, on hormones, never gave it up, has had breast cancer. She was a DES baby. DES was, if anyone knows, it's very, very powerful synthetic estrogen that unfortunately was given to pregnant mothers and created quite a number of problems for their female babies. But she
in the 60s, right? She was in the 60s.
In the 60s, yeah. And so, and she was like, forget you all. I'm staying on my hormones. And she is a prolific writer, a prolific speaker. She travels the world. Not saying she doesn't have typical things that come on with your 70s, but like she kayaks all the time. And she is an inspiration. Obviously, she lives a good life, has good foundations, nutrition, hydration, movement, all the things, great community. And she does decent doses of hormones and hasn't stopped.
Yeah. And
Again,
as I,
some people go, she's an N of one. I'm like, yeah, but I hear this N of one a lot. They show up in my comments of like, I don't know what all these haters were thinking, but you have to pry this out of my cold dead hands.
100%.
Like, all right.
And for those who want to talk about the science, like I say often on social media, is if you're a women's health practitioner and you're saying only evidence-based, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
There isn't enough evidence yet because we were left out for so long.
And
Evidence informed, yes. But if you're waiting for it to show up that it's healthy and forgetting the fact that many of us have been prescribing and recommending and doing all of the appropriate things that we know to do now for women in menopause, you're missing. We've seen what happens. I mean, you and I have looked at thousands of test results. Thousands. That's worth something.
And anecdotal is part of evidence-based. We take the studies along with common sense, along with all of our experience that are right in front of us every day. I don't have studies on certain herbs, but I can tell you anecdotally, like, man, if every single patient feels better or sleeps better or has this response, like, that must be the thing.
That must be the thing.
I'm not going to wait and say, well, it's in 30 years when I finally get a study on this one herb. No, I'm going to be like, crap, 15 people told me this worked great. 100%. Let's use it.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's going to like put my life at risk, unless you can show me that it's risky, I'll try anything. Right. And I think most women in the muck of perimenopause in particular would be willing to do whatever it takes to feel better.
Yeah. And sometimes we just start with the hormones because that is going to help pull you out of the muck. Sometimes it's hard to like want to eat better or move your body or find joy in community when you don't have the hormones. So sometimes I was explaining this to a male practitioner who was trying to gatekeep the hormones. I said, why don't you just put them on hormones and get their oomph back? Yeah. Give them a little bit of boost, get them feeling better. They're going to be so much more happier and motivated to do more of the foundational stuff. People who weren't trained in foundations, don't do foundations, they didn't grow up with that exposure to them, eating healthy, moving your body, all the things.
Gut health, man, stuff, sleep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like imagine if they started sleeping better, they'd probably be more motivated to make different choices.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of something Dr. Tina Moore said when I interviewed her on the show. She said, we were talking about GLP-1s, of course.
Yes.
And she said, my goal as the prescriber was like, let's get people feeling a little bit better before we pile on a whole bunch of foundational stuff. And I think that is just great practice. We should absolutely be thinking that way.
Have you seen the memes when it's like, my full-time job is getting enough protein, making enough, walking enough steps, drinking enough water, like doing this, doing that, it's like this 14 list long thing for the, like, how do I even raise my kids and go to my job? I have to eat protein all day. I'm like, I know it can be so overwhelming.
It can be, but at least we know now how to take care of ourselves.
Yes. These are the things that should have been taught a long time ago.
A long time ago is absolutely right. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. Thank you. And I know, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I have never for a second lost the passion for women's health. In fact, I'm more fired up now than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Not only fired up, but like sarcastic and bitchy. And I love it. I'm here for it. I'm gonna toe to toe, 10 toes down, defend for it. So, and like I said earlier, I wish somebody would, confront me. I will tell you how I think. I have no problem.
Because I don't care.
I don't care.
I know. And I represent Team Sassy and Sweary. That's me.
Yes. Sweary. I love it.
Okay. Where can people find out more about you and your work, please?
Yes, absolutely. Everything is on my website, which is www.drcarriejones.com. Now, I have a ton of free ebooks. In particular, one that we talked about today is my Hormones 101. So drcarriejones.com/hormones101. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed listening to this, that'll at least help. I also have a labs ebook. We talked a lot about labs. If you want to know specifically labs, I have one there. I am on Instagram, as we said in the beginning, at dr.carriejones. It's education plus humor and sarcasm, because I love that. And I also have a podcast, which is the Hello Hormones podcast. Listen wherever you listen to podcasts.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you for dispensing this information, because I know anytime two women come together and speak passionately from the heart and the seat of our souls, things will move.
Yes.
And I do believe, as we started out this conversation, that our leadership will be called forward in an even stronger way. Because frankly, look at the world. Women
Yeah.
clearly need to take over. The grandmothers need to take over.
Yes, we do. Gen X, we're coming for you. We're
Hell
all
yes,
coming.
we are. Okay, let me ask you a final question. I ask all my guests that come on the show. Dispense us a little bit of life wisdom, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Healing happens at joy.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
I was gonna say, ask knowing what you know now. What would you tell your younger self?
Yes, healing happens at joy. So I actually have it on my board right behind me. And what happens was, if you're a little woo-woo or a little witchy, we talk about the vibrations of life. And the lower vibrations are like anger and jealousy and rage. And then we move up in the vibrations up to, love and joy and happiness. And I'd heard this really amazing ethereal woman one day say, well, healing happens at the vibration of joy. So find their joy. And I thought, I love that. And it doesn't have to be big, huge occasion joy. It can be the funny meme that your best friend sent you. It can be the way that your cat sleeps, that when you watch it. It can be, anything. It could be really big things. It could be something you see that's wonderful and heartfelt on the news. It could be something your partner or your family did for you. But look for the joy repeatedly. Train your brain to see joy. And that's where the healing happens.
Oh, great. Nobody has talked about that. I've asked that question of a lot of people. Nobody's talked about the energy of healing. I freaking love it. Yay! Dr. Carrie Jones, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
The information and other content provided in this show, or in any linked materials, is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.